Hi, welcome to the Grassroots Champions podcast. I'm Charlie. This is Nate. This podcast is our first episode. We're talking about everything from youth soccer to professional soccer. We're going to have some fun along the way. We're going to have some good discussions. You might be wondering, who are these people? Why are they starting a podcast? Nate, can you please tell us who you are, why you're starting a podcast?
Absolutely. So, hello, everyone. I'm Nate. I'm the soccer dad of three young soccer players. I have a U15 player and two U13 players. They've been playing this game since they were old enough to walk, and they really love it, and I really love it. I never had the chance to play the game growing up. I started watching the game in the late '90s. My first game being Manchester United and Newcastle, and I decided that I was going to be a fan of the winner of that game. And Manchester United beat Newcastle 1-0. And so here I am 20 some odd years later, still rooting for Manchester United. And how about you, Charlie? How did you get involved in the game?
It was a high stakes game. 28 years? 26?
20, yeah.
28 years of loyalty.
Fandom. Yes,
Fandom.
I've been
Hanging on the result of one game.
Premier League titles and 14th place in the Premier League. So,
yeah, I'm Charlie Zubel. I'm originally from Wisconsin. Now living in Minnesota, coaching soccer. I started coaching there when I was 15. Now I'm 32. I've been coaching about half my life. And I love it. I do it every day. I play, I referee, I coach, I watch soccer. I'm an Arsenal fan. Not because of the result of the game, although I was a Man U fan and we were watching on Fox Soccer Channel. It seemed like every game was Man U, so I was like, oh, I guess I'm a Man U fan now.
That's how I got lucky.
And then they played Arsenal, and I was like, I actually really like watching that team. That's a really cool team to play. I still like Ronaldo, obviously. It was like 2006, so Ronaldo was doing big things. And then they played Arsenal again, and I'm like, I actually really like that team. That's my team now. But yeah, it's been soccer every day since then. I played multiple sports growing up, and just love soccer. So that's why I'm here. That's why I do the things I do. That's why we are starting a podcast. So welcome to the Grassroots Champions podcast. Let's get it started. Episode 1.
So Charlie and I a couple months ago decided that we wanted to talk about the game in a different light with more depth, but with more humor too, just kind of all the aspects, whether it was the European game or, U9, 7v7 hodgepodge soccer. And so that's why we decided to start this podcast. We're going to talk to you about grassroots soccer, which does start from the beginning. That's what Charlie coaches in. And then after that, I will bring you professional viewpoints and I'll educate you on the European game and all the competitions and the big changes that have been happening in the game.
And another big reason that we want to start a podcast is just to share, right? To share our perspective of the game, to share our guest perspective with everyone that's watching. So I think we all get better when we hear from people that maybe we're not familiar with, maybe different perspectives, different roles. So I think that's one thing that we want to do is share with you guys. We're learning a lot already just making the podcast. So I hope you guys learn some things and are entertained along the way too with the professional soccer, the conversation, the memes. We're going to have some memes and goals, and of course our guests. So welcome to the podcast. Now you know why we're here. Let's get into the warm-up. The warm-up is when Nate and I just shoot the breeze, talk about, hey, what happened this week? What's on your mind before we get into the more discussion-based segments. So what was your week like? What's October like for Nate Confer?
So fall season's over for my boys. We just finished with our USYS League, which for Minnesotans is a league that stretches from eastern Wisconsin all the way to the Dakotas. It's kind of a fun regional experience that the boys get to, go on trips and stuff like that. And we came home with a victory. And so that was really exciting. This is also a little bit of our downtime, and so we spent a night playing in our kick or treat tournament, which is a 5v5 indoor tournament. I believe Charlie also had a team in that tournament. How did it go for you?
I had the U9 girls in that tournament in the U9 and 10 bracket. We got second place as it's kick or treat, so it's Halloween. Teams dress up in silly outfits. We were the not so silly U.S. women's national team, customized jerseys and everything. I wore all the USA stuff I had, which is a lot of things. And we got second place. How did you guys do?
I had a pretty talented team, and so we came home with the championship T-shirts. I was dressed the part too. Coach was in a suit and tie, pair of nice kicks. It was a lot of fun.
Were you channeling a certain coach or manager when you were wearing the suit and tie?
There might be a manager in Europe by the name of Carlo Ancelotti who's won a fair amount of Champions Leagues, and so I tried to channel his success, and I was able to do it.
Am I doing this right? The eyebrow.
I think
You
you
know,
are.
there's that meme where everything's going fine, and then Ancelotti goes,
Yeah. And then-
and then they win the game. Uh, yeah, the kicker tree is just nice and fun. Like Nate said, we were kind of in a little bit of a gap in the Minnesota winter. Oh, it's not winter yet, but it's starting winter. So
Don't wish it upon us too early.
in mid to late October, teams kind of take a break as we move indoors. Gets a little too cold to play outside, although the weather's been nice recently. But then we're going to be in domes for 6 months at a time, and I'm not joking when I say
The
6
domes are
months.
already up.
The domes are up. They're all turf. There's no grass in there, and that's going to be our home for 6 months.
And as a soccer dad, it is pretty fun because I enjoy watching the speed of play, the tactical side of the game, and the kids in that environment get to develop a little bit more in those circumstances. You don't have the grass that's 6 inches long, and you hit the ball and it rolls to a stop before it even gets to the player.
I've played on those fields. So now we're getting into our youth soccer segment. And that's actually one thing I wanted to talk about is kind of the coach's perspective of how do you plan your year in Minnesota, knowing that you're going to spend 5, probably 6 months indoors in those turf spaces, uh, smaller spaces, maybe a lot of multi-sport athletes, so you're going to have lower numbers too. It's a real challenge for the coaches, especially if you're not prepared for it. So that's one thing I wanted to talk about this week was what do you do as a youth soccer coach? How do you format your year?
And I've always wanted to know that too. Do they change their trainings? In the fall, I've seen 15, 16 kids at a practice. When it becomes 8, are things changing? Do they downsize or do they continue with the same types of trainings?
Yeah, I think it's both, right? Because there's definitely things you get from playing full-sided soccer, and then there's a different kind of environment, different training environment in the winter where, yeah, you do have smaller numbers, you get more touches on the ball though. You get smaller space, but your touch gets tighter. You hone your skills. So there's pros and cons, a lot of cons, but a lot of pros too with Minnesota winters, training indoors, training in those domes. Yeah, as far as like planning a year, like me as a coach, I know that in the fall and the spring or summer, we're going to be outside. We're going to have half a field of whatever we're training on, maybe even a full field sometimes. I know we're going to be outside. I know we're going to be playing games and tournaments. Just so you guys know, in Minnesota, the fall season is games on the weekend, so you're training during the week. The spring and summer games are crazy. They could be Monday and Wednesdays or Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then you also train 2-3 times a week, however much you're training. In the winter, you might have winter league games for U11 and older, which I think is like 6 or 10, somewhere in there throughout the whole winter, which is November through April. That's what we call winter. Whereas a lot of teams do just training. It's a lot of training. And that's because there's so many multi-sport athletes in Minnesota that they're going to go play hockey. They're going to go play basketball. So you just know that as a coach and you start planning your year differently. So it's not, I get to November, I only have this much space. Oh, now what do I do? Especially the more that you've coached, especially the same age group too, or just in Minnesota, you understand kind of the rhythms of the year. So you know, okay, I'm going to coach these things in the fall, knowing in the winter I'm going to be doing a lot of technical things. We're going to be doing lots of habit building and repetitive things so that the players are ready when we come into spring and summer. Now it's time to perform. It sounds silly for me as a U9 coach saying, let's go perform. For me, that's, hey, can we do those habits that we had? It's not performing to win. It's like, hey, let's do these things. I'm a big on visual cues. So we're going to be talking about those in the March and April months. So we get ready for the spring and summer. Very first day of May, games can start. So you go right from indoor in the domes for 6 months. Next day, you could be outside in May on the grass, in the wind, in the elements, playing a game that for my age group, U9 and 10s, we haven't done in like all of winter. So yeah, there's definitely some rhythms and some flows that happen in Minnesota soccer, especially youth soccer. It's crazy. It can be really crazy.
That's fascinating. And so when you were growing up and playing in the game, was there a special coach that kind of introduced you to the philosophies and principles that you now apply to the kids that you coach these days?
Yeah, I think two coaches stick out in my mind. One is Coach Steve. So when I was
Good job,
seven,
Steve.
good job, Steve. So when I was playing all those other sports as a kid, I did play soccer when I was like 7. I did 2 rec seasons with Coach Steve, and that's all we had in North Central Wisconsin. It was just like rec soccer. There wasn't a whole lot of club stuff. Well, it's U7, so yeah, it's just rec soccer. And I was like, okay, well, yeah, I'll play soccer in the spring, in the fall, and then I'll try some other sports. Really love basketball, so I stopped playing basketball. And then all of a sudden in 8th grade, my friend comes up to me and says, like, hey, we need a player for our rec team. Do you want to join? You played with us when you were 7. I was like, I'm kind of a basketball player now. I don't really like do soccer. That was fun though. That was fun playing on your team when I was 7. And she said, oh, well, Steve's our coach. I was like, I stopped in my tracks and I was like, I need to play on this team. I told my mom when I got home from school that day, I was like, this team needs me. They need me to play on that team. And she goes, there's 2 weeks left in the season. You're not going to join a rec program with two weeks left. I'm not buying you cleats. But then I trained all that rest of the season, played on Steve's team again, and I had a great time. And why do I like Steve? Steve was very positive. You know, there's the positive sandwich where they say one positive thing, give some feedback or criticism, and then say a positive thing. Steve was like 13-1. It wasn't 2-1. He went a little overboard with it, which I loved as a player when I was 7. Loved at certain times when I was 13 too. So I take that with me where I want to be that positive coach. I think you can do all things with being positive, and you don't have to yell and scream or be bad cop. Don't get me wrong. There's definitely times you have to be bad cop. All coaches do. I almost said all cops. All coaches, there is that time where you do have to be bad cop and you have to rein the players back in. Maybe we're having too much fun. But I think my MO, my main thing I like to do is try to be like Steve, try to be as positive as possible. So I have that going with me, and then I also have Coach Stan. Coach Stan was the smartest guy in my whole area growing up. Just like the only real like soccer mind there. So I learned a lot from him. Even just really simple things that now I think is simple. Like, okay, our forward is going to push their center back this way. We're all going to follow. We win the ball that way. Really simple concept in soccer, and I never even knew about that until I was like 16 playing on his team. I was like, oh, what? This is so much fun. Like now that I know the tactics of the game and why to pass there, so I can get it back, so I can go somewhere else. I'm like, oh, soccer just became way more fun because of Coach Stan, because of what Stan's telling me, and just that's why I bring both coaches with me. I like the positive energy that Steve brought. I also like the competitive energy and the professionalism and just how much Stan taught me and the players on my team about. So I try to bring both of those everywhere I go.
Yeah.
Nate, you know who does not have to deal with the space issues or multiple sport athletes missing from their trainings is Minnesota United. They share the same dome as us, so they're in the same exact place that my U9 girls are training. But they get the whole dome, everyone shows up, and that's professional soccer. Coming up next, we got the professional soccer segment. All right, you ready?
Great. Yeah.
All right, hey, welcome to the professional soccer segment. This is really Nate's area since he watches a lot of professional soccer, and I really only watch Arsenal. So I'm going to turn it over to Nate to tell us what happened in the professional soccer world this week.
All right, guys, here comes a quick 5 minutes. Let's talk about the European game. So there's 5 major leagues. We'll start with the Spanish league, which is La Liga, the French league, Ligue 1, the Italian league, Serie A, the German league, the Bundesliga, and most people's personal favorite, the English Premier League, which obviously is England. There's also a greater competition called the Champions League, which takes teams from not just those 5 leagues, but other leagues as well. My U15 loves FC Porto, and more often than not, they play in Champions League. They're from Portugal. There's teams like Celtic and Rangers that also join in from Scotland.
It's basically the best teams in Europe, right?
Correct. So there's coefficients for each nation, and so some leagues like England and Spain will get 4 teams, and then other countries like Poland and Hungary, they'll get 1. And usually those teams have to go through qualifiers before they can make the actual Champions League, which up until this year consisted of 32 teams, 8 groups of 4, and you played each team in your group once home and once away for a total of 6 games.
Don't tell me they changed it up. That sounds like a standard good tournament format.
It was a great tournament format, but it might be better. Listen to this, guys. Stay with me. The new Champions League is 36 teams in one table.
Why? Why are they doing this, Nate?
Well, no, it gets better. So they grouped these 36 teams into 4 groups of 9. Now each team, so we'll take Manchester United, for example. Oh, wait, they're not in Champions League this year.
Try Arsenal. Let's go Arsenal
We'll
instead.
take Arsenal, for example. So they were in the top league. The computer randomizes a schedule that forces Arsenal to play 2 teams from the top division, 2 teams from the second, 2 teams from the third, and 2 teams from the bottom. A home and away in each experience, which gives them 8 total games.
Sounds great. What's wrong with that?
You guys still with me? So then after that, they take the top 8 teams and they qualify for a knockout round. The teams that finish 9th to 24th then get drawn into another bracket of which they can play more games. And the winner from that bracket then joins the top 8 teams from the earlier bracket. Capiche? How about this? Let's just start with the goal of the week.
Okay, yes. Okay, thank you, Nate. I am getting lost trying to do the math and figure out what the bracket looks like. Nate's going to tell us every week, this is one of my favorite parts, player of the week, his goal of the week, his dud or flop of the week, which I'm looking forward to, and his team of the week.
All right, let's start with goal of the week. It was Romano Schmidt from Werder Bremen, who scored an equalizing goal in the 89th minute against Bayer Leverkusen. Let's take a look. Some finish, huh?
How did he bend it like that? It's crazy.
Near post, no less. Get in.
All right, who was your player of the week? Don't tell me it was Schmidt, was it?
No, Schmidt didn't do anything more than that.
Okay.
Let's hope. Somebody...
No, he didn't do a single thing. We'll keep it in.
Schmidt was not the player of the week. It was...
You forgot his name.
His first name.
I don't know what it is.
I know.
Adamayo?
Ademola
Adebayo?
Emmanuel Adebayo. Player of the week is Ademola Lookman of Atalanta. The team played great as a whole, but Lookman had 2 goals and 2 assists, which for you Everton fans is 1 more goal and 2 more assists than he had in the 3 years that he played with you between 2017 and 2019.
Like I was on Everton?
Lookman was on Everton.
Did you guys know this? I didn't know this.
Everton fans, post down in the comments why you decided not to keep one of the best players currently in the world.
Depending on timing, though, they could have had another best player in the world named Theo Walcott at that time.
Oh, yes. 18-year-old Theo Walcott was pretty good. But I think he was 19 when he got to Everton.
I got nothing to say about that. Nate, who is your dud or flop of the week? This is the one I'm looking forward to the most.
Well, for all of you that follow the Premier League game, my favorite team, Manchester United, was in 14th place this weekend. Finished in 14th place. And so imagine my surprise on Monday morning when the manager, Erik ten Hag, was let go from his duties. And so, Eric, congratulations. You were my flop of the week. Best of luck to you in your next endeavors.
Nate, something tells me you're not too upset about him being the flop of the week.
Let me tell you about my favorite moment. Erik ten Hag, when he first got to the club, said that eras come to an end. Eras such as Manchester City and Liverpool. Those eras are continuing on pretty well while Erik ten Hag's came to an end. So
yeah, what are they, first and second in the league? So, goodbye, Eric. All right. Era's come to an end. I'm sure he'll have a new era very soon, and we wish him the best of luck.
We do.
And Nate, who was your team of the week?
Team of the week. Well, this was actually really easy for me. Watching highlights from all 5 leagues, one team stood out to me, and it was a very important game. I'm sure most of you are familiar with it. It was El Clasico, which takes FC Barcelona against Real Madrid, the 2 biggest teams in Spain. I'm guessing you thought it was a pretty close game.
Traditionally, yeah, the El Clasico. I remember I was in college at like 2012, and like my classmates and I would skip to watch El Clasico because it was that big of a game. You know every single player that's on the field. You know every sub that is going to go into the game, and it was a battle. So, it's El Clasico. It's probably very similar, right?
Not this time. If Kylian Mbappe could have stayed on sides, Real Madrid would have been in the game. Barcelona won 4-0, and so pretty simply, Barcelona is the team of the week.
Sounds good to me. If you beat your rivals, the other best team in Spain 4-0, I think you deserve to make the list. So, Nate, what else in professional soccer? Let's talk about the adult game. Anything that's on your mind about professional soccer this week?
The refereeing decisions. Let's talk about it.
Tell me about those, Nate. What happened? Was there some controversy or something happening?
Well, so my final game for the weekend was the Arsenal-Liverpool game. And if I'm not mistaken, the referee had a huge involvement in that match. Take a look.
I would say disallowing a 97th minute goal to win it is influencing the game a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, especially when we don't know who the foul was called on or if there was a foul at all. But lo and behold, Liverpool and Arsenal each walk away with a point. So,
well, I mean, I used to referee, still do like a handful of games a year. That was actually my first job. So I've been refereeing for a long time. And even when I watch professional games, when they have 4 referees plus the VAR team and they still get things wrong, sometimes I'm like, you know what? Benefit of the doubt. He probably had a bad angle or something. And
maybe he was right there.
And then I looked at the replay because it was during the kick or treat games. So I'm get off the field. I check my phone. I'm looking at the highlights. I'm like, what happened? What was that? I couldn't even see the foul. And then you see Anthony Taylor in blue turning and pointing a direct free kick. I'm like, what? And there's no issues from the Liverpool players. No one's complaining about it. The crowd is not complaining about it, as you normally hear all the time in EPL games. So I was like, well, looks like a good goal to me. And then it wasn't.
And as most of you know, the EPL has a system called VAR that could overturn situations like this. But henceforth, it did not happen.
Clear and obvious. Clear and obvious to some, not so clear and not so obvious to other ones. But hey, we live and we learn, and we have, we'll try again next week. Long race. It's a long race in the Premier League. So, all right, Nate, last one. Now that we've gone through the player of the week, the goal of the week, the dud and flop of the week, which is a big one, and team of the week, Nate, what are your games to watch for this coming week? Any games that stick out to you?
This is a really exciting weekend. We have games across all leagues, but I found 3 that I think you could watch and 1 that you should watch. So we'll start with the coulds. Barcelona's playing Espanyol, and if you think Barcelona-Real Madrid is intense, Espanyol's their local rival. They think they have a chance. So tune into that one if you're interested in watching La Liga. We'll move over to England. Manchester United with ideally a new manager.
It's your team. They do have a new manager. Did you see that?
I haven't yet.
You didn't see who the manager was? It's the guy from Sporting.
I heard that he's in. Let's go. Then I might have to change it.
Nothing's real until Fabrizio says it, right?
That's true.
So, give myself a yellow card for jumping the gun on that one. I thought he was confirmed. Is he not?
Ruben Auerman?
Yeah.
Yet to make decision about future.
All right.
Darn it.
My bad. Okay.
We'll move over to England, where my honorable mention is Manchester United, my team, playing against Chelsea. And maybe they'll have a new manager.
Fingers crossed. I don't think Eric's coming back.
No, probably not. Ruud van Nistelrooy, one of my favorites from 20 years ago when we were beating Arsenal, will be managing in a caretaker role. So that should be exciting. Maybe he can score a goal.
Didn't beat us during the Invincible season, did he?
But he didn't lose either.
Okay. What other games are we watching?
So also on Sunday is the Aston Villa-Tottenham match, which are 2 of the more or less surprises of the season. Aston Villa top of the crazy Champions League table. And Tottenham hanging along in maybe the top half of the league.
Probably. I like watching them play.
Finally, for all you early risers, Saturday at 6:30 in the morning, we have 7:30 in the morning because of daylight savings time. We have Arsenal and Newcastle.
I'm an Arsenal fan. I will be waking up at whatever time of the day it is to watch my Arsenal play. So I will be watching that one. That's your game of the week?
That's my game of the week. I think it'll be fun, entertaining soccer. My prediction for that one is a 3-3 draw.
3-1 Arsenal. I could see Isak guy scoring.
And what do you think, viewers? post down in the comments below on what you think the score of that game will be.
Put all your score descriptions in for all of those games right now.
Let's get us talking.
Now that the professional soccer segment's done, my neck's feeling a little looser.
Soccer
Not
dad's
as
back.
hot. We don't have to be as formal. We're you soccer guys, right?
Yeah, we're just soccer
Delve
guys.
into the pro soccer, but normally at this time we'd have the extra time segment. That's when we subject our guests to watching memes, goals, techers, anything we find interesting, and then have them react. And that's a lot of the time the best part of the game for me anyway. I really like watching all that stuff. I think the memes make things better. It's always fun watching great goals and skills, and hopefully we show something that you haven't seen this week. So look forward to that in the next segment. It's called Extra Time. Now that we're not doing that one for this week and we don't have a guest, we're going to go right into the scouting report.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Our final segment of the episode is called the scouting report. And Charlie, why don't you tell them a little bit about that?
Yeah, so our scouting report is just something that we're looking forward to, something that's on the rise that we can tell you that's going to happen very soon, or just something that we appreciate, gives us hope, makes us enjoy the game of soccer. For me, that one is just the winter process and being a soccer coach for the winter. Like I said, we're indoors for 6 months out of the year, which is daunting. It's crazy. When I go on coaching courses or meet coaches from around America or the world, they say, oh, well, how many weeks are you indoors? I'm like, it's not weeks, it's months. We're indoors for months. And I think you can either look at that as like a prison sentence where, oh, I'm stuck in this dome, or you can talk about those pros that go along with the cons that we talked about earlier, and just enjoying the process, right? It's a great time to make really big gains. And then one of my favorite things is we end the fall season, we're playing a certain way, we hone, we make these things into habits, so we make sure we're doing them well in the spring. I'm looking forward to in the spring when we come out looking like butterflies from our cocoon, just playing amazing soccer. So it starts with the process. I really enjoy just the process of training and seeing the kids get better. So that's my scouting report. That's what I'm looking forward to coming up.
And speaking of yours, that also correlates with mine. I enjoy watching my boys play in the winter environment. You know, the game moves a little quicker. The passes are a little more direct. It's a lot of fun. But as the professional host, I have to talk about one of these Premier League teams need to catch up to Pep Guardiola, right? This has got to be the year.
It's about time. I would wish Arsenal has less injuries, suspensions, referees might have to do something with that. Yellow card myself. And I think Arsenal's got a shot, though. I think once we get healthy, I don't think there's any stopping us. Even Pep City.
We'll beat Newcastle and we'll go from there.
We'll go from there.
Well, thanks everyone for tuning in on our very first episode of Grassroots Champions podcast.
Yeah, and hey, you can join our squad by following us on Instagram at Grassroots Champions, on YouTube and Rumble at Grassroots Champions Podcast, and on X at Grass Champs Pod. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in episode 2.